Okay, so why are we marching on International Women's Day? Well, for us, it's to continue the proud and militant history of IWD, which is over 100 years old, and to stand with the millions of women the world over who are marching, rallying, and holding gatherings to affirm their rights. We also march to assert our claims as women to have a say and control over the affairs of society and in defense of the rights of all. 2019 marks the 8th annual International Women's Day mobilization organized by Women for Rights and Empowerment, formerly the Edmonton IWD Committee. This consistent mobilization by a grassroots group is no small feat, and our organization and mobilizations have helped to connect the fighting women of various unions, communities, and organizations. As much as organizing is hard work, it's also a genuine pleasure to connect over the years with women of such spirit. At a time when expressions of resistance can be too easily atomized or isolated in online echo chambers instead of amplified in common cause, fighting women have found the greatest expression of our dignity in our struggles to defend the rights of women and the rights of all. On International Women's Day, we salute the warrior women whose courage to fight for justice and peace, for their rights as Indigenous women, for the rights which belong to us as women and as workers, is inspiring and decisive in the fight for the rights of all. Women are not fighting for an agenda set by the ruling elites, but for a society where any form of discrimination or humiliation is a thing of the past. What better day to do that than IWD, a day connected with so many epic struggles, from the anti-war women opposing the murderous imperialist war 100 years ago, and the immigrant textile workers who banded across language and cultural divides to stand up for their rights through their unions, to the socialist and communist and women workers who established International Women's Day, and the women who rallied for peace and bread in Russia in March 1917, and the women of many national liberation and people's movements worldwide who have marched on this day and continue to do so. We are determined to set our own agenda. On IWD, we take a stand to defend freedom of conscience, oppose criminalization of speech and social action, and to call for justice. We stand for justice for Indigenous women and girls, and for nation-to-nation relations with Indigenous peoples within a modern Canada, for free, prior, and informed consent as to what takes place on their land, their traditional territories, and unceded territories. We express our support for the Wet'suwet'en land defenders and their just stand to affirm their sovereignty and claims on their hereditary lands and their right to say no. We stand with the land defenders and affirm the right of Indigenous people to uphold their own laws and governance in which women have a place of honor and importance. We are fighting for more investments in healthcare, education, social programs, adequate wages, childcare, and seniors care. Postal workers are here, persisting in their fight for pay equity. Migrant women workers have forced the government also to back off and are continuing their fight for landed status now for all migrant workers on arrival in Canada. Youth are fighting to block attempts to establish two-tier minimum wages for young workers in the food industry who are mainly women, and those in establishments that serve liquor. Women are also in the forefront to make Canada a zone for peace, to uphold the sovereignty and right of peoples to determine their own futures and societies, and to oppose Canada's active support for regime change, sanctions, interventions, and war. We say, hands off Venezuela. Governments and corporations continue to violate Indigenous rights, workers' rights, women's rights, and human rights.
And disability rights as well.
And rights for disability people, yes, for all people that are standing up for their rights. But the thing about the rights is that they can't be taken away. They belong to us. Migrant workers carry them here. Indigenous people know they have them despite centuries of systematic efforts to dismantle their rights. And women's consciousness tells us that we have rights too. When it comes to our rights, our no is as important as our yes, maybe now more than ever, for the good of our bodies, our communities, and our world. We honor our power as women, and we honor the earth when we honor ourselves. When we stand up for each other, we are unstoppable. 2019 will bring both provincial and federal elections. It is more important than ever for us to present our demands, to speak about the real conditions of our work and our life, and to present our vision for society. By doing so, we say loud and clear, we do not accept that our participation is reduced to simply handing over our money or our vote. The defeat of the Conservatives and their anti-social, anti-woman austerity agenda in 2015 was the result of the determined resistance in which women played a leading role. As new Alberta and federal elections approach, the impact of women fighting in the neoliberal, anti-social offensive is all important. Women must stick to our own demands and our own conscience, instead of getting drawn into agendas set by others. In this way, we will strengthen our organizing work to build a society fit for all human beings. So when women's rights are under attack, what do? Fight back! We call for no more missing and murdered women. What do we want? We want justice. And when do we want it? Now! The women, united, will never be defeated. Long live International Women's Day.